Sorry I said those things. You know how much I love you, don't you? Who the hell are you? Who are you?
Are you not Lisbeth Salander, the writer of wrongs? The girl who hurts men, who hurt women? I could never figure it out. Why did you help everyone but me?
Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 13 of DNA Film Wars. Today we are reviewing Girl in the Spider's Web, directed by Fede Alvarez, based on the novel by David Lagercrantz, written by Basu, Stephen Knight, and Fede Alvarez, and starring Claire Foy, Sverrir Gudnason, Lakeith Stanfield, and Sylvia Hoeks. So, Dylan, you got any initial thoughts you'd like to share?
The movie was alright. It's not as dark or gritty, near as dark and gritty as the first one, which is kind of what I wanted this to be. I kind of wanted it to be more similar to the original, a little bit darker and grittier, but I mean, for what this is, it's kind of more of just straight up action movie with a pretty overused plot, in my opinion. But overall, I mean, it's alright.
Yeah, it's definitely important when you go into this movie to understand that this is not the same kind of movie as the original. The original is a straight up psychological thriller. This one is a, I'll say quote unquote, action thriller, although there are large stretches of this movie that nothing is happening. That in itself does not make it automatically a lesser movie just because it's an action thriller, a less complex action thriller rather than a psychological thriller. Now there are things that we'll get into that does make this a lesser movie. We'll get into it as we get into the story, which, speaking of which, what do you got?
So let's start off with the title sequence, because we mentioned that in the first review of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This title sequence is somewhat similar. We kind of have that black ooze-ish stuff, forming different shapes, or like forming over people or forming over a shape.
But see, with this film, it kind of makes more sense because they kind of draw the parallel, with the latex thing at the end.
Yeah.
And also it turns into a dragon because she's, the girl with the dragon tattoo.
It does. Overall, it's the title sequence is similar, but it's nowhere near as weird, and the music behind it isn't quite as weird. It's just got score music versus a weird version of a Led Zeppelin song. Yeah. So, the plot of this movie is, in my opinion, kind of similar to one that we've seen many a times. There's someone who has created this program that controls nuclear weapons. Someone wants it back.
Yeah. Big
baddie steals it. Now we got a movie, because now we got to get our program back. So, I mean, that's the basic plot of this. That's the basic plot of this movie.
You say it's not convoluted. I want to walk through this a little bit in detail and point out why I think it's convoluted. So we start out with of course, the pre-title sequence scene is a flashback to where Elizabeth and her sister her younger sister, whose name is Camilla, are at home with her dad. And it is implied that her dad is sexually abusing them, or at least Camilla. And anyway, so Lisbeth she runs out on this little balcony thing, and she wants Camilla to come with her, but Camilla stays, and then Elizabeth jumps off and slides down the snowy hill or whatever. Which, first thing, continuity-wise, I'm pretty sure they said somewhere in the first film that Lisbeth set her father on fire. Did I miss that?
They did say that.
Yeah, they never mentioned that in this film. But that aside, so then we go through the title sequence and everything. And yeah, like you said, the basic plot is this computer programmer develops this program that can
control
access
all online nuclear
code. Yeah, super generic action movie plot. He sells it to the Americans, so he hires Lisbeth to steal it back. So she steals it back from this NSA guy who's going to stay with us throughout the movie, who's completely pointless.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, and anyway, and then she gets double-crossed by her sister's organization.
Who we find out is her sister's organization.
Later, like an hour and 15 into the movie, we find out her sister's running this. But her sister is working with, this is the plot point that really bugs me. Her sister is working in tandem with the Swedish government, who is also working to steal this from the Americans because, quote, would you rather have the U.S. who has gone to every war to have this technology, or Sweden who has never gone to war? I was like, oh, that's so stupid.
Oh yeah, no, that's bad.
And anyway, and then of course, then the sister Camilla double crosses the Swedish government lady and stabs her in the neck, and then we have this big epic, I say epic, sarcastically, climax where some stuff that we'll talk about later goes down. But I don't know. I guess not convoluted is not maybe the right word, but it is ridiculous in parts.
I can agree with that. But like I said, this plot, it's kind of one that we've seen. It's pretty generic. I wouldn't say, like you said, convoluted is probably not the right word for it. There's just a lot going on, and there's a lot of double crossing, which is completely pointless.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention the little kid who is the programmer's son.
Oh, that is a stupid addition to the movie.
Yeah.
We have the programmer's son, and he is the key to the program. So we have to have him tag along for the entire movie, which is just an added paperweight.
The only reason they have that is to give the audience a reason to root for Elizabeth Salander because she's in custody of this little boy that needs her help, I feel like.
I guess, yeah.
And okay, continue. I'll say that later.
Speaking of useless characters, our main character, quote unquote, Mikkel,
who was played by Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig in the first one.
Is played by Daniel Craig in this film.
Played by a completely different actor whose
name we can't pronounce.
Yeah, we're not gonna try. Anyway, he is in this movie, but he is completely pointless.
Like most characters in this movie.
He is completely pointless. He just happens to show up in a few scenes. He gives us one shred of information, I think, in the entire movie that actually helps the plot.
Yeah, and then he gets kidnapped at the end, which gives Elizabeth
a reason to go home.
But she already had the reason because the little boy got kidnapped.
Yeah, so it's...
Really, he's there for her to give her a reason to make the little boy give them the launch codes or the access codes to this program. Which is stupid because then she has another plan. I'll get into that later.
Anyway, so what we're trying to say, the plot for this movie is completely ridiculous. It's, at its core, extremely generic until you start throwing in all the subplots and minor characters and supposed to be major characters in the books and the movies that are completely pointless. Another useless character. We have this NSA guy, and he is an NSA agent, and there are a couple points and he's completely pointless for the most part. Besides the fact that he's the person that has this program stolen from him.
Yeah, but you don't need that. Like, they could have just had...
It could have just been the NSA in general. She just hacked into their
they didn't
mainframe
need
or
this
whatever.
guy.
He's pretty much pointless too, minus maybe a couple scenes. He randomly... I'll say this. There are a couple points in this movie with this character that I'm just like, what? One scene, he opens up his trunk and he just has like an entire arsenal in his trunk, and I'm like, okay.
Where did he get that? First of all, he had to have rented that car because he flew there. I mean, obviously he didn't drive the car to Sweden.
I'm like,
That's
okay,
impossible.
so
how did he set that up? Because he's not. He said he's not on government business.
He's on pleasure. He's there for pleasure.
Yeah, how did?
Because he gets stopped by customs.
Pleasure, but yeah, how does he have this car out there?
Yeah, so there's my first problem with this character in the plot, or not the first, but he just has this random arsenal in his trunk, and I'm like, A, why? B, where'd he get it? Another plot hole. He just randomly, all of a sudden, at the end of the movie,
he's a dead shot sniper.
He is a excellent marksman. I don't care what computer program they're using.
Yeah.
They have like a 3D rendering system that renders this entire building, and you can like see heat signatures of certain people. And we have someone on the other end that's a computer hacker, kind of like Elizabeth, in a van down the side of the mountain. And he's like,
van down by the river.
And he's like pointing people out to this man. Mm-hmm. But
they never.
I don't care how good your computer program is. Just because you have a computer program telling you where people are in this building doesn't just automatically make you an expert marksman.
Yeah, they never set up that he's this great sniper.
Just boom! All of a sudden, I'm Chris Kyle. I'm the best sniper in history.
I'm the bestest.
I'm the bestest. So just there are a ton of plot holes in this movie that make no sense. Another fault with this movie it takes an hour to an hour 15 before we have the first confrontation, I guess, of our
Elizabeth
two
and Camilla.
sisters, Elizabeth and Camilla. They kind of like have a stare off on a bridge.
Yeah. It's,
That's like an hour and 15 into the movie, and you're like, oh, okay, so she's connected to this movie. All right.
yeah, but like, I feel like they.
But I mean, you see that in the trailer, so I mean, obviously you know she's connected to this somehow, but
they
at the
set
same
up
time,
like it's supposed to be this big reveal, but first of all, it's in the trailer, so if you watch the trailer, you know. And even if you haven't watched the trailer, if you know anything about movies, that opening scene gives it away that the sister's the bad guy of the movie.
yeah. With that being said, Elizabeth is not so much a hero in this movie as you think she would be with all the stuff that we said, with her being our main character and like having to save the day or whatever. Pretty much everyone does stuff for her.
Yeah, she never really saves the day by herself.
I mean, the only thing well, okay, so here, let's say this. We have our NSA expert marksman who's taking out everyone in this building for her as she's walking through.
As she's stuck in this latex suit.
So he's just taking out people left and right. The little boy uses this syringe full of something that kills people.
No, it makes the guy... This is another stupid contrivance. He injects the guy with the thing that blinds you. And so at the end, the way that the evil sister is stopped is the blind guy somehow falls out a window, wanders out into the road, and so the car that the evil sister is in hits the dude wandering out on the road, veers off into the forest, and, you know, flips over a few times, and then the sister is all hurt and bleeding, crawls out to this cliff.
Anyway, so like that, like Lisbeth doesn't do a whole lot in this movie to actually like be the hero. So this kid injects this guy. Everyone else is taking out other people for her. She finally makes it out of this latex body bag suit thing.
Which I don't understand.
I don't know what the
I think
point
it
of
was
that
supposed
was.
to be like some kind of device that their father used to abuse them.
I don't know.
Because it's there at the beginning of the film, like he has that sitting beside him.
Yeah,
I don't really
it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But so she gets out and she's walking. We see her NSA expert sniper out here killing people as she's walking down a hallway. She makes it out of the building. Mr. Blind Guy gets hit by a car, and this car just flies off the handle and goes off the road and hits a couple trees. So now her sister's bleeding, so she didn't even have to kill her sister or have that epic confrontation with her sister, like final showdown or anything. She's already dead. She just kind of goes up and walks up to the top of this snowy cliff, and they have a couple words. Why didn't you ever save me? And then she jumps off.
Yeah.
The end. Wow, that was dumb. So that's my biggest complaint with the movie. Bunch of plot holes, bunch of sub storylines that are not important, and a bunch of characters that are completely pointless. But that being said, I mean, there are a couple decent scenes. I think Aaron's gonna mention them later. There's a scene where Lisbeth gets drugged by a man to make her, who's trying to frame her for the killing of this programmer who's created the program.
Yeah.
And she gets drugged, and she crushes up this amphetamine that
These amphetamine pills
that this man is taking, and she crushes them up and snorts them, like, obviously, so they enter her bloodstream faster to kind of like reverse the effects of these drugs that she's been, or this drug that she's had injected into her system. That's, you know, I don't know, I guess knocking her out or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she has one scene where Mikkel has to like staple her wound closed, because earlier in the film she gets clipped by a bullet,
and then she glued
she glued it originally at first,
and
then she staples it. The sound in that scene is really good, but we'll get into that later. Yeah. But overall, I'll give the story, I'll give it 3 stars, I guess, maybe 2.5, 3 stars.
You gotta make a decision.
Let's go 2.5.
2.5. Okay.
It's bad.
Yeah. So you've covered most of it. I'm just gonna say that I didn't like this movie most of the way through. Where it really fell apart was this ending, where up to this point, like we said, Elizabeth has done nothing. She has the big fight in the bathroom when she's trying to save the programmer from being assassinated, but she ends up getting drugged and the guy gets assassinated anyway. And then so we go through and we get to this ending scene where she shows up to her old home, and she goes in, and of course it's a trap, and they gas the place, and she has this cattle prod, and she gets into a fight with these guys, And, I mean, she beats him up for a while, whatever, but of course there's too many, and she ends up losing. And instead of doing the smart thing and killing her, like, you know, is what the bad guys should always do. So of course, they go for the generic thing, and they have to keep her alive because they want her to convince the little boy to give them the code. It's a contrivance, but whatever. And so they keep her alive, and she makes the kid give them the code. But then magically, there is a sniper, and he starts sniping people.
Because he's just randomly that good all of a sudden.
But what bugs me is why the hell did you go into the house in the first place and risk being killed just for you to have someone snipe these people later? Like,
why didn't he snipe him in the first place?
Why didn't he snipe the sister? There's no reason given. Like, ugh.
Why didn't he just snipe everybody?
Yeah.
And then she walk in and save everyone.
I mean, it's so stupid.
Save everyone.
And then the end scene. I don't know how many of our listeners have watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but the end scene where she's standing on the cliff or whatever, and she falls off or jumps off into like this mist below her, which is taken straight off the ending of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The soundtrack even sounds like a cheap ripoff of this music being played at the end of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and it bugs me, and I'm very disappointed in this movie by this point. Because it is a huge step down from its predecessor. Now, I know these movies aren't supposed to be linked really tight. But part of my problem is that these movies aren't supposed to be like linked really tight. But at the same time, they bring back characters like Mikhail. I'm sure he was in the book or whatever. But he serves no real purpose to the story of this movie. And he talks about how like it's been 3 years, I think he says, since their last encounter. Even though Claire Foy looks a lot more than 3 years older than Rooney Mara at the end of the last movie. Whatever. Anyway, like Dylan said, there is a couple of good scenes, like the ones you mentioned. You know, snorting amphetamines, stapling herself. There is some cool imagery in this film at times, but it's pretty bad. And you look at the writers that are on this film. Basu, or whatever his name is, his one big credit is Monsters Dark Continent, which is a sequel, I think a direct-to-Netflix sequel to Gareth Edwards' little indie film Monsters. I have not watched the sequel. I watched Gareth Edwards' movie, and it's alright. I didn't watch the sequel because I heard it was really stupid and bad. So there's part of your problem. Of course, the director had a hand in writing it. Now, this Stephen Knight guy, he has a lot of credits to his name. I just picked 2 movies and put on my notes here. November Criminals and Burnt, because they're 2 of his more recent films. I haven't watched any of his films.
November Criminals, I think, is that one that has...
Has the guy from Baby Driver.
Yeah, Ansel Elgort in it. And
Burnt,
then Burnt is the one with...
Bradley Cooper, where he's a chef. Yeah. I didn't watch it. Like I said, I haven't watched any of the movies he's wrote, but he's wrote a lot. And some of them...
What else has he done?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but... So he's got some cred, but... obviously, I don't think it carried over well to this film. This film feels like it's one of those movies that probably went through several rewrites. I think they struggle. I know that Claire Foy, I heard in interviews and stuff where her and the director like kind of changed the movie up as they went along to be more like originally. I think the character had some like extra nude scenes and stuff, and rightly so. I think Claire Foy argued with the director, said that's not necessary. Why are these in the movie if not necessary? And I'm always for like if you're just having a nude scene just for the sake of it. I mean, depending on what kind of movie you're making, it's not really appropriate. Especially in this kind of movie where they're this franchise, especially in the first one where they're really trying to bring awareness to sexual violence and sexual abuse. But anyway, getting off track here. So I know that it did go through some rewrites and stuff even as filming was going on. I think that's evident if you watch the movie. But anyway, all said, I'm going to give this story a 2-star rating.
All right. Let's get into some acting.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give me your thoughts on the acting in this film.
Claire Foy, I think if you look at what she's given to do, she does a good job. I think her, and she was, I don't know how much of this was her and how much of this was the director. She does try to emulate Rooney Mara in certain aspects, like her accent, her voice inflection.
Yeah.
At times, she has kind of a similar hairdo. At times, she has like a faux hawk thing going on. to kind of, copy the mohawk that Rooney Mara had in the last film. She has a bunch of ear piercings. They really toned down the piercings in this movie. She's not nearly as gothic, I guess. I don't really know what the word is in this film. She's not as out there. This character I feel like is a different character because Claire Foy's interpretation of the character has a lot more confidence, I feel like, as a person, like just as a person in general, than she did in the previous film. But this film, they've turned her into like almost like a Batman vigilante type superhero, and less of a normal character. But whatever. But all that being said, Claire Foy, I think, does a good job. She's a good actress. I've seen her if you've watched First Man this year, you've seen her in that. She's in some other stuff. She's a Golden Globe winner, according to the trailer. I don't know what she won her Golden Globe for, but I thought that probably the actress that bugged me the most in this film was her sister, Sylvia Hoeks, who plays Camilla in the film. I say bug. Well, really my biggest problem is that she never convinces me that she has emotional trauma from her years spent with her dad through her performance. She says it, but I don't really believe her. And that's one of my big problems with this movie too, is like everybody's motivation is a little fuzzy. Getting back to the story, but everybody's motivation is a little fuzzy. Like at the end when they're having their standoff and she's like, "Why did you save everybody but not me?" And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, that's a good question. And like Claire Foy's response, Elizabeth's response is well, you chose him that day.
I couldn't go back. Which also begs the question, why did Camilla choose him that day? They never really try to delve into that, why she chose her father over her sister. And I think they really missed not only an opportunity, they missed a vital part of the story there for us to really believe why these two characters hated each other. I never understood why they hated each other so much and why Camilla was so out to get her sister. Because her sister tried to get her to come with her that day and she said no. What are you going to do? But anyway, getting back to acting, I don't think Sylvia puts on that great of a performance. Everybody else, although their characters are useless, their acting is fine. They don't detract from the movie. The little kid, little kids make me nervous. Sometimes they can get annoying, but he doesn't talk a lot. He's supposed to be like this genius or whatever. I'm not sure I get genius vibe off of him, but, whatever. He's there. He does some prime factoring when some words are said.
Yeah, that's about it.
I don't understand.
That's about the extent of his acting. And he says, I want to go home to mom a few times.
That's true.
But, like I said, everyone else is fine. So, overall, just on the strength of Claire Foy's performance, I will give acting a 3.5 star.
All right. So I agree with you for the most part on this acting. I think Claire Foy, like you said, she is a good actress. I haven't seen First Man yet, but I heard she does a great job in that.
She does a good job what she's given to do.
In this movie, she does a really good job for the script that she's given. You do the best with what you got. And I think she does a good job with what she has, and she plays this character very well. She does do a pretty good job of like imitating that kind of accent that was set up by Rooney Mara in the first movie, and she does play that pretty well. But she does play a different character in this movie, which I like but don't like at the same time. But with that being said, her acting is pretty good. I think Sylvia Hoeks, like you said, who plays Camilla in the movie, she's not really, like you said, very convincing as like this big baddie in the movie. And her character motivations are pretty pointless. Like, what makes you decide to start this evil organization? What makes you decide to start this evil organization to, obtain this program just so you can get back at your sister?
Yeah, I feel like
what's the point?
And some of it's not her fault. Like, a lot of it is the writing. I feel like you can't really shove her character and her motivations into the last 45 minutes of this movie. Her character should have been throughout this movie, and I feel like they should have been showing the parallels of like how Elizabeth was handling her life versus how Camilla was handling her life.
And while we're saying that, how you're saying that you're trying to shove her character motivations into the last 45 minutes of this movie is quite a bit shorter than the last movie by almost 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's only 2, which is one of the good things. I'm glad.
I don't have a problem that it's pretty much right at 2 hours. It doesn't bother me. That first movie was good, even though it was long.
Yeah, this one dragged. I never felt the first one dragged.
This one was, we're an had it been a better story, which we're getting off track from the acting, but had it been a better story, the length would have been fine. The story is just so the movie's just so short, and or not necessarily short, but they're trying to shove too much story into a 2-hour runtime, which doesn't necessarily work, which doesn't help these people's acting.
No.
So these people could be good actors, but the writing for their characters is just bad. Other than that, I mean, like you said, everyone does an okay job. I mean, this NSA guy, he's all right.
Yeah. No one detracts.
Okay.
Like, no one is like...
No one's just, like, absolutely terrible in the movie,
yeah.
But I'll give the acting 3.5 stars like you.
All right. So we'll move on to our final section, Hodgepodge.
We really need to come up for a better name for this section.
I know. When I get some more time to think about it, I'll work on that. So I just basically said effects, they're decent. I mean, there's some gunshots and some makeup effects that look pretty good. Nothing bad. Nothing like stood out to me like, ew, that's gross. Soundtrack is serviceable. I mean, except for when they're ripping off Crouching Tiger. I mean, I don't really remember it. I mean, it's there. It does what it needs to do. I thought it was really interesting how muted the colors are in this movie. Like, the first one had muted colors, but I don't feel like to the same extent.
It's very gray.
It's gray. Everything is gray.
Everything in this movie is gray.
I mean, it is snowing. I feel like pretty much every outside scene is either snowing or just really dark gray outside. It's cloudy. There's never any sunshine.
I don't know if that's how it is in Switzerland and
it might be how it
in
is
the winter, but it's gray.
I mean, you know, everything else is pretty average. The cinematography, the direction. I do have questions about their use of physics in this film. There's a scene that you've seen in the trailer.
Oh my gosh.
Where she goes off the dock on her bike over the frozen bay or whatever.
I just lean over to Erin during this scene. She just like rides across this like frozen lake, and I'm just like, that's not how physics works.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would work that way because like when she hits the ice,
how did it not completely just break?
It broke under her, but she was able to bounce out of it and like keep going.
But B,
how does she have traction?
How does she have traction on the ice? Like she's perfectly got traction.
I mean, I guess as long as she just goes straight and doesn't like turn.
No, but still, as soon as you hit, as soon as you crack that ice, if you're struggling to get up, your tires are gonna be just spinning on ice.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what it is.
So I taking everything into consideration, I will give this film a.
You didn't give your grade for the hodgepodge section yet.
Well, I was gonna say for the hodgepodge section. Everything I just said in consideration, I'd give the hodgepodge section a 3 stars.
All right.
It's average.
I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page with you on this movie. I mean, it's all right. This hodgepodge section, effects are right. I mean, there's some stuff that goes down during this movie. I mean, the scene with the gunshots, with the sniping at the end. I mean, it's not bad.
I thought the best executed like practical effects scene. I think it was all practical is when the car flips over in the forest.
Looks good.
Even though
to a degree.
The reason it does is stupid, but
I mean, the effects are pretty good. Costuming, I mean, it's pretty similar to the first one. A little bit different with Elizabeth. She's not quite as, out there with her dress. We do get some reminiscent shots of her in the movie where she kind of looks similar to how she did in the first film.
And I think they did a very good job of keeping the dragon tattoo really consistent.
The dragon tattoo is pretty consistent. Like so with that, like the makeup is pretty good. The tattoos on her body look good.
Yeah.
The sound design in this is all right. There's a few memorable scenes. The gunshots sound really good when he's sniping these people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bass to it, which I like. And I really liked the scene where Mikkel is like stapling this wound closed. There's a lot of bass in that scene too, with the sound of him stapling her wound closed. It's like a really loud thud when the staple enters her body and he completely clicks the stapler down. I thought that was some of the standout sound design in the movie. The score, I mean, I liked the score. I thought it's pretty good, but it's not one that I'm gonna remember. It's not gonna be like one that I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I really want to go back and like listen to a certain piece of music from that score. It's all right. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's well written score, but it's just not a memorable one. I kind of like the dull color palette. I mean, it kind of semi fits the tone of this movie. It definitely fit the tone of the last movie, the muted color palette. But that was a really dark and dingy kind of feeling film. Made you kind of feel, yucky or whatever watching it. This one doesn't make you feel, that yucky way or like you're like kind of nasty for watching it or whatever. This one's just kind of, a straightforward action movie. But I mean, the dull color palette's alright for me. Cinematography's alright. There's some decent shots, some wides of like snowy landscapes that look pretty good. But other than that, I mean, everything's alright. So I'll give the Hodgepodge 3 stars too.
Alright, so overall, I'll just say, basically summarizing what I've said before, I think this film's poorly written. It's got decent acting in it. From a technical standpoint, it's pretty average. But because I think that story is so poorly written and so contrived, I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5 dragon tattoos.
Alright, so what are we missing? Just like the tail section there? Of the tattoo, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in conclusion, on my part, this story is definitely poorly written, and there are a lot of plot holes and pointless characters that are not needed in this movie. And it's one that at its core is basic and simple, but once you add on all these other layers, it's completely ridiculous and stupid. It's completely ridiculous and stupid. The acting on Claire Foy's part is good for what she's given, and everyone else does an alright job. There are some higher points in the Hodgepodge. I mean, the effects aren't bad. I really like the score, like I said. It's just not super memorable. And there's some interesting color choices on the director's part, and some standout cinematography shots. But overall, I mean, I'll give it 3 spiders in a web.
In a web?
3 spiders in a web.
I thought you said 3 spiders and a web. I was like, what's the web stand for? A half star?
3 spiders in a web, so that'd be, I guess, 3 stars.
All right. So, like I think we've said several times over the last few episodes, coming up we have, of course, this weekend, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
We're going to go try to watch that one either Saturday night or Sunday morning.
Or not Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Fantastic Beasts
and the Crimes of Grindelwald.
And The Grinch, which
we might have to get to later in the week.
Kind of like this one. And then the following weekend we have Creed 2. I have watched the first 6 Rocky films. Now just going to go back and rewatch Creed. And we're going to watch Widows.
That comes out this weekend, but we're going to talk about it next weekend since we already have 2 movies this week. So,
yep.
All that being said, you got anything else to add?
Nope. Just gotta promote those social media accounts. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at DNA Film Wars, all lowercase.
Absolutely. And if you want to leave us any questions or comments, or if you have any concerns, just want to have anything to add, you can contact us at DNA Film Wars, all lowercase, no space, at gmail.com.
Yep, if you want to leave us a review or
listen to us in general,
you can find us on all major podcatching services.
Pretty much anywhere that you can think, we're probably up on it.
Yeah, reviews and likes are definitely appreciated. With all that being said, I think that's all we have for you this week. So I've been Aaron.
I've been Dylan, and we'll see you next time.
Why is it this, but why is it spiders don't get stuck in their own webs?